Learn what it feels like to be able to talk your shit. It is important. You must convey confidence. Okay? What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Office Hour Tangents, where I come straight from class and come straight to the podcast booth and kind of talk about the tangents that I may or may have not went over in class. And today's class, it wasn't actually today's class, it was yesterday's class. But I was talking to, and I tend to talk about the subject a lot in just all my classes at some point or another. Usually when I'm asking the students to give me feedback, to participate in the class, or I'll pose a question. Before every class, I usually ask them like, hey, anything interesting you came across in the last 24 hours that pertains to tech, creativity, video games, fashion, anything like that. And honestly, I usually it depends on the class, it depends on the institution. But lately I've been getting just a lot of, when I say lately, like for years, I just usually get a lot of, it's usually just students kind of staring at me and waiting for me to talk. It's just like almost they sit down and it's just like, okay, cool, for this next 50 minutes, hour and a half, 2.5 hours, you're just going to entertain me. You're just going to talk and you just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And unless it's, let's talk. You know, they have troubles with just kind of like having a conversation. And I have my thoughts behind why that is, and everybody's experience is different. But in my experience and what I've kind of, in my conjecture, sometimes I feel like, I don't want to say they're afraid to talk, but they might have some trepidation because they're afraid that they may be getting judged because that's what school is. That's kind of how we present school to students from kind of kindergarten on, in my opinion, is, you're there to get tested. My 8-year-old, I feel like he's taken at least, it feels like 20 tests, maybe about like 10, but it feels like he's taken like 20 tests already. And, he anticipates the results, and the results determine certain placements in class or where you're going to go the next year. And it's like a lot. So when I get them as college students, I feel like they're just kind of like, I know the game. I know this is a trick. You're tricking me right now. You want me to speak up, and then you're going to judge it. You're going to place a grade on it. You're going to place some kind of scale to it. Whatever I say, you're going to push back on me. Even if I say, hey, no right or wrong answers, all those tropes, and they just have troubles kind of like opening up. So the question that usually follows is, or not the question, the statement I make that usually follows is, when you become a professional, which is why you're here, usually, when you become a professional, you're going to have to talk and you're going to have to be confident. And it usually devolves into just them being confident, right? I feel like a lot of times they don't talk also is because they just lack the confidence to talk about their thoughts and, more importantly, their work, right? And I was making this analogy in a class yesterday, talking about, so lack of a better term, I was just kind of encouraging them to talk their shit, right? I was looking at each of them in their eyes, and I was like, yo, you designed something that you were proud of, and you don't look proud of it. You're not presenting it like you're proud. You're not raising your hand like, I want to show my stuff. You're acting like you're not proud of it. So the only thing I could think about it is, I'm not proud of it either. I'm just assuming that it's not good because that's how you're presenting it. And then I just got on one of my tangents. And I started talking about my experience, and it's not personal, but it's I'll say a unique experience. I mean, there's not many, I can just see from my experience, the designers and the creative I've met throughout my career, I don't find a lot of professional creatives who were also like D1 level athletes. And I'm not saying I'm a D1 level athlete, or I was, but I did play D1 baseball, so I guess I was a D1 level athlete. So you just don't see a lot of, you might see people that play sports in school, but they don't, that wasn't their focus, right? But it was my focus, and art and design was my focus too. And I said what I learned and what's helped me being that dual guy was that I kind of approach my profession, being a designer, being a creative, kind of like sports, like how I would approach sports, training for the sport of choice, participating in it, right? Just that kind of moxie that you must have to be an elite athlete, right? And like, again, I'm not saying that I was an elite athlete, but I was athletic, okay? And if you ever wanted to present yourself as an elite athlete, it's like you have to present yourself like an elite athlete, or nobody will believe you're an elite athlete, right? Just think of like the athletes you feel like that are elite. I guess, any professional athlete, if you're getting paid to play your sport, I would consider them or anyone an elite athlete, right? And usually, so I'm thinking of the top of those lists. So the Michael Vicks, the Michael Jordan, the LeBron James, the Kobe Bryants, Brett Favre, the Peyton Mannings, you just kind of get into these guys, the Bo Jacksons, the guys that are like even just head over heels better than they're like the greatest players in the world. And they all have this aura about them, right? Like, I'm sweet, like I'm dope, I'm great, I'm better than you. And I try to tell them that in many instances, I would say design, right? Anything creative, anything you're going to like put together and then put out there, not necessarily put it on the wall like an artist would do, right? And art is very competitive too, but these are design classes I'm teaching. And if you want to make a logo, you want to design a poster, a flyer that's going to go out there, an ad that's going to go out there, a website, an app, you just want to kind of help people with their ideas. It's like that ad is going to be competing against all the other ads out there. That website is going to be competing against all the other websites. That app is going to be competing. Even in school, you're going to be competing with your colleagues in class and like who's the best in the class? Who's the best designer? I remember it being competitive when I was at Pitt, and it wasn't that many design classes, but in the art classes, I was always trying to be the best artist. I was never the best artist because when I found out what graphic design was, I understood that I didn't want to do art. I wanted to do graphic design. But I was always trying to be the best, or at least at the top. So when we put our stuff on the board or up, or the teacher came around, I was one of the best. It was a competition, right? And I'm just not feeling that competitive aura in my classes, in my creative classes right now. So I just went on a tangent talking about how you must talk your shit. You design something and you have to be confident in it, and you have to project confidence. Almost like an athlete or a basketball player, for instance, would go onto the court for a one-on-one game or a championship game, or you go to a tryout like, hey, I'm gonna make this team. Nobody's gonna like keep me off of this team, right? And I tend to feel like a lot of creatives that kind of go into creative fields, they aren't usually the athletes that play a lot of sports in like high school, because they don't have that type of confidence, that confrontational kind of confidence. Elite athletes have a almost confrontational level of confidence. Like, I'm projecting confidence, and you probably won't like it, and I really don't care. I almost want you not to like it. I just need you to know that I'm better than you. Sounds very arrogant. Sounds very vain. That's not usually how a creative person kind of moves. But I bet, and I don't want to say I bet because I don't know, but the elite creatives that I know, that I've met, they all have that level of confidence. They're all arrogant people. I can name names, but I won't, right? They come across like, I'm just better. Like, talk to me about ideas. I can make your idea better. If you come to me for a brand mark design or a website design, or let's work on this research project, it's going to be the bomb because I'm me. I'm him. So it was almost like I was talking to this class, like, you know, you need to interject some kind of athlete level confidence into what you're doing as a professional, creating these designs and these things you're creating. And if you don't project the confidence, the person across from you, the client, the user, the viewer, they're not going to be confident in your stuff either. Okay. Particularly, it was a class called Professional Practices. So in that class, we're charged with getting them kind of leveled up because they're all seniors, getting them ready to become a professional. I actually think that class should be taught. I think there should be maybe 2 levels of that class. One that's kind of taught at the beginning, and then one that's taught more towards the end. But I honestly think like there should be more business like and professional practices like classes more intertwined with the creative classes that we offer. Because, you know, once they graduate, hopefully they'll become professionals. And are they prepared to be a professional? And one of those things is like coming into a meeting and having confidence. When you put something on the wall, or I'm about to display it on the projector, you gotta like project confidence in what you did. Because if you don't, I'm assuming you just did it 30 minutes before you came to class, whether it's good or not. You can't rely on me. They're just relying on me as a professor to tell them that it's good, instead of them saying like, "Boom, I know this is good. Tell me how good it. Tell me how good it is." They're more like, "Did I do it right?" And I'm like, I get that as a freshman, but these are like senior level students. And they're like, did I do it right? I don't know. And they talk with disclaimers first. They start their conversations off with disclaimers. It's like, I was tired. I didn't, Photoshop was acting up. My computer died right before class, so I had to redo it. And, you know, my license expired and nobody had a license. And they start that off before they even start talking about their project. And I like shut them off like, blah, 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 blah. What do you have right now? Let's talk about it. And they just lack the confidence. So I just talked like an athlete. Like, you got to be more like an athlete. An athlete steps on the field and they have to believe they are the best out there and that nobody can deal with them. And I'm like, the world of design, there's certain parts of that world where you have to be just as competitive. Like, I'm the best out there. This is the best solution for you. This is going to rock out. And this is the reasons why. If you have your research in line, if you have your reasoning in line, if you can explain it, that's why most of my projects, when you do projects for me, it has to be accompanied with a description of some kind. I have you writing. You have to start explaining your work. Like, I don't care. You could put it up and it could be dope, but you have to explain why it's dope. You have to convince me why it's dope. You have to be able to articulate why it's dope. Because it's professional practices, so I was talking to them about like job interviews. Like, you know, you get on a job interview, it's like, yeah, they're going to look at your work, but really what they're doing is they're looking on if they're going to hire you or not your work. They can get work from anywhere, but they're going to pay you. Should they pay you $50,000, $100,000? Are you going to be a good fit for the team? Are you going to be a good fit for these projects? Is this how you're going to be in the office? Because that's what they're judging. Are you going to be this meek person? We don't have time for you to grow and grow up. We need you to come in working right now. Okay, I don't have time for you to say, hey, when you're in a meeting, we need you to speak up and talk about stuff and contribute. They don't have time for that. They need somebody that comes ready to go. And that's usually what an athlete, I feel like, keep on saying this, that some people are going to be watching it like, nah, that's not what athletes do, or you don't have to do this. I get it. But I'm talking about from my perspective, and what's kind of helped me in my career was I approach what I do professionally as a creative, like much like I approached sports, or I still approach sports. I still, to this day, I don't care. If we go out and we have to do something athletic, or we about to throw the Frisbee, I bet I throw the Frisbee better than you. Let's see who throw the best Frisbees. Let's see who can catch 20 Frisbees in a row. Throw it anywhere. Oh, you want to race? Luckily, I have my sneakers on, right? I'm still like that. It doesn't leave. So even when a client calls me and they need my creative services, it's like, oh, you want this? I don't know if that's the best idea. And let me tell you why. Let me push back. Let me tell you about the research that I've conducted before, or from my experience, I think this is the better solution. Or maybe this color choice isn't right for you. Or have you did any market research on your target demographic? Oh, your target demographic, they usually kind of like these kind of things, or these kind of things, or they usually are over here. They don't use this. So you're planning on using this, that's probably won't going to work. And if you have all that stuff in your holster, you'll be more confident. When I'm talking to my students, I'm like, you'll be more confident explaining your work. You'll just look and feel more confident. And that client will be more apt to latch on to that confidence, right? And another thing I'll kind of talk to them about is how clients or hiring managers or anything like that, or if you're on a team, usually you're going to be the only creative on the team. Say on a startup, for instance. I'm in a startup right now, ER Info, and I'm the only creative on the team. Like, there's 2 developers, there's 2 testers, there's the owner / CEO, and there's like a guy that kind of like underneath him a little bit. So the owner, he's an engineer, right? The 2 developers, they're like high-end developers. One's, they're just high-end developers. You know how developers, they're very, coders. And you got the testers. They all have degrees and they all have all this stuff. And they're very analytical about what they do. And I'm the only creative. So I designed the entire app. I prototyped it and I gave them all the assets for the developers to kind of develop it. Right? But usually when I come into those rooms for my whole professional career of now probably, I don't know, 20 plus years, I tell them that when you walk into these rooms, usually the client that's calling you, they're not a creative. That's why they're calling you. So you're not going to have a like mind with you. You're not going to be talking to another creative and you're going to have like creative talk. And you're going to talk about colors and like, and you're going to talk about typography like they know about typography. It's going to be an engineer. It's going to be an MBA. It's going to be a CEO of some kind. It's going to be somebody that's not creative. And they're going to think that you're not as smart as them. That's just naturally what happens. I know it. That's just my experience. I'm not saying this is all experiences. I'm saying my experience. You walk into the room and they think they're intellectually higher than you. They just do. They think you draw pretty pictures and that's your God-given ability. Not that you worked at it. Not that you have degrees too for it. Not that you've practiced hours and hours to get good at it. It's like, nah, that's a God-given ability, almost like speed. Like Tyreek Hill didn't have to practice speed. He was just given that ability by a higher power, right? And those that know, like, no, he works hard to be fast. Just like us as creative, we work hard to be creative, and creative goes beyond just drawing pretty pictures. So when you walk into that, now I'm talking like I'm talking to my students, when you walk into that meeting, that initial meeting, it's your job to project confidence and to project yourself like you're equal with them. And oftentimes that involves you having to talk, and you have to talk first. So, they say something that's wrong, you have to interject, and you have to be confident in interjecting. And since they already believe they're intellectually superior to you, you have to be prepared for their pushback, right? Because if you try to correct them or you try to offer your insight, they might take that as a challenge, like an intellectual challenge. And you have to be ready to spar with them if needed. Because they will respect you after you provide the facts, after you provide the reasoning, after you provide the confidence. Without that, they will run right over you. They will not see any value in you. Even though this job, you're saying that this job is probably going to cost, say, $8,000 to do this thing. If you don't come in there with confidence that you're the shit and that you can accomplish this job better than anybody else, they're only going to want to pay you $150. They might say, hey man, why don't you just do it? It'll be good on your portfolio. Just take this little guy and just, do something cute for us, and we'll help you with your portfolio. Because they don't respect it, right? People only value things that they respect. So I do teach them that it can affect your bottom line if you don't project that confidence, right? If you start charging money for stuff, which design is, you could do design pro bono, but even if you do a pro bono, you're trying to make a brand mark or a website or an app or a poster or a flyer. All of those entities are trying to make money for somebody. And when I say money, it doesn't necessarily mean money, but it can mean, hey, make people go to this party, make people buy this product, make people follow these directions, direct people around the amusement park with wayfinding systems, which is going to keep them at the park more. And if they have a good experience, they'll come back more at $100 a pop. That's what we do as designers. We help people make more money. So when you start talking like that, when you're working on projects like that, you can't be in those kind of projects like, well, I don't know if you like it, whatever you like, whatever color you like, I'll do whatever you want. It's like, no, you're charging $8,000, you're charging $10,000, $20,000, whatever. If you're charging money, I need to see the value of what am I paying for? Because nowadays I can maybe just go to AI and just do something because I don't really value it anyway. So oftentimes I have to be in those meetings and I have to explain why what I'm about to do for y'all, what y'all asking for, is valuable, right? And I have to come and I have to have the ability to talk at their level. I can't, I don't want them to talk over me. I want them to talk with me. Let's talk together. You just don't dictate like, hey, I want a logo that's like a soccer ball and it's in flames and it's going to be orange with a big foot on it. And I want a grass stain in the corner. And I can, the meek designers will say, okay, I'll have something back to you in a few days. Yeah, that's not valuable. That's a $50 job. That's $50. The confident person will say, I don't know if this is a good idea to have that many assets in a logo. Usually you kind of just want one element, and you don't want multiple elements to compete with each other. And even like the grass stain, what does that accomplish in the logo? If it doesn't accomplish anything, we probably should cut that fat. Then I might show them an example of the original Apple logo and how it evolved to the Apple logo we kind of know now. And explain reasons why. Then show them another example. A lot of times on the fly, not playing, just freestyling. Okay? You got to have that confidence. Speaking of freestyling, tangent, it's another thing that a lot of my classes, so if you've ever been in my classes, you know that I'll talk about video games, of course, but I also talk about freestyling. But freestyling in the fact of, like freestyle rapping in the fact, in the vein of, as brain exercise. So I'm a freestyler. I like freestyling. I won't say I'm good at freestyling, but I've been freestyling a long time. I just like doing it. It's just like something to pass the time, like we're in the car, in the shower, or whatever, and with my boys. But it's such good brain exercise. It's like improv. So me being able to freestyle, right? Have a rhyme on a beat helps me when I'm in those situations and I have to start freestyling reasons or freestyling whatever was asked to me, freestyling research, being able to regurgitate something that I may have experienced 15 years ago in this meeting. And then if you get to the point where you can freestyle in front of people, right, whether it's a joking manner or not, you'll have that confidence when you're in a meeting when you need to freestyle in front of people in a different way. Right? So I encourage my students hey, you should just, when you're just playing video games, chilling, watching TV, just start freestyling. It don't have to rhyme. It don't have to sound good. You just do it and treat it like brain exercise, like you're practicing. Like you're practicing. It's like improv. When you're practicing and you just need to use improvisation to kind of get out of a sticky situation or explain something. Or this is the difference between you making $20,000 or you making zero. What can you come up with right now? right? And so I mean, I interject hip hop into that too, because hip hop is a very aggressive music form. I'm like, you just have to have that confidence. Like, look at people with confidence and try to just see how they move, right? And it just separates yourself, because a lot of people in creative industry, especially artists in their ilk, there are a lot of times they're doing their art. And I used to be this guy. I still am when it comes to my art, not my designs, but my art. I'm still like, don't look, no looking until I'm done. You're very sensitive. I forgot what rapper is like. He's, a lot of artists are just very sensitive about their shit. They spend a lot of time on it, but with art and design, it's more than just time. It's like your soul on the page or on the screen or on the whatever. It's like you're exposing a part of yourself every time you create something, which I think is very unique to our profession, right? To the creative professions. Like, you're exposing some of you. Like, even me doing this podcast, I'm exposing me. This is scary. Like, it is scary. So it's one thing to be looking in the camera and having confidence. It's another thing to go home, edit this up, put it on YouTube, and then hit publish. And then it's going to go out there. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing these podcasts. It's to kind of like, it's exercise for me. It's exercise for me. And I come in here without a script. I just come in here talking about what I was talking about before. And I treat it like it's exercise, right? It's just getting my stuff out. It's like therapy. But I also want to come across as, hey, I have something to talk about. Let's talk about it. Because creatives, we're not the most talkative people in the world, right? But I have always considered myself a very unique creative in that, my two things that I love to do and I do well, or as far as being an athlete, I've done well, was sports and art. In K through 12, my favorite subject, anybody ask me, what's your favorite subject in school, Brandon? Gym and art. Even though I did pretty well in all the other subjects, but my favorites were gym and art. I would hate school if I didn't have gym and art. And we talking about art class where, I don't know how it is now, but I'm assuming it's the same. When I ask my students about it, it's pretty much the same. Art class is like, hey, do art for art's sake. Today we're going to sculpt something. No, it doesn't matter how good it is, or it's just yours. Everything is beautiful. Everything is great. That's art. And it's like 12 years of that. If everything is great. I would like to give a shout out to the Columbus College of Art and Design Saturday morning art classes that I used to take when I was in probably elementary and middle school, because that always started with a competition. And it kind of set me on this path to be competitive. I really give it credit because I needed a scholarship. I think it cost money. I was too young to even know that was going on, but I know, before I can get into it, I would have to go today. It would be crowded with all these kids, and they would have a still life right in the center of this big old room. And everybody would just be around this still life. And the challenge was to draw the still life, like, bananas, fruit, and in a basket and all that stuff. And that would dictate if I would get a scholarship to this program. And if I didn't get a scholarship, and I'm assuming that you had to pay if you didn't get a scholarship, we couldn't afford to go. So I had to get the scholarship. So I really treated it like very seriously. And when I would draw my still life, I would see other people's. And there was a lot of other people that was better than me. It wasn't like I was in there like, man, I'm the shit. I'm about to get this scholarship. It was just like, woo, I'll be one of the last people to be leaving there, making sure that apple has the right shine or the right shading, and I'm in literally like 5th grade, 6th grade, right? And I just remember being competitive, and it set me on that path. So shout out to Columbus College of Art and Design for those Saturday morning classes. Also, I don't even know if this guy's still alive. His name is Terrell Smith. I will never forget his name because he was in one of the classes, one of the last classes I kind of attended, and like before I went to high school. And I remember I spent all this time. I used to draw Sonic the Hedgehogs, and I spent all this time. I'm a slow drawer, and I drew this Sonic, and I was so proud of it. And I had it in my folder, and I brought it to this art class. And then, you know, you just being there showing and tell, like, oh, what's Taro? Because he was like one of the only other black kids in there. And we were in there, and we was in the back. And he's like, yeah, look at the Sonic. He's like, oh, that's dope. Then he put out this sheet of paper, and he whipped up this Sonic, this drawing Sonic. He whipped it up in literally like 3 minutes. And I felt like it was better than mine in 3 minutes. I had to spend like 3-4 hours on my Sonic. And he was just like, whoop, whoop, whoop. What y'all think about this? What you think about this? And I was like, yeah, that's dope. Like, damn. But I took it as like a defeat. I took it like he challenged me and he defeated me. Because I couldn't just challenge. And I come back and I'm like, here's my 3-minute Sonic. No, I didn't have those skills. So I remember after that day, like, damn, like, I don't know if this can be a profession. That I don't know if I could do this professionally. Because I don't feel like I'm the best. It's like I always feel like you had to be the best at something to be a professional at it, right? And those two experiences where it set the path and just the competitive nature and just me playing sports. So, you know, this was just a tangent. There's no like, I'm not teaching anything. I'm not like giving advice about anything. But if anybody is looking for advice, and if you're still like in K through 12, or I encourage you, play sports. Find a sport. I don't care if it's an e-sport. Just find something competitive to participate in that you can conceivably be good at, right? So it's one thing to be, you know, in a sport, and there's another thing to always be the 12th man on the bench, and you never get in. So you really know, you kind of don't have that competitive spirit about you. Nah, do something where you conceivably be good at, and you can practice at and get better at. And you can learn what it feels like to be able to talk your shit. It is important. You must convey confidence. Okay? Design is a competitive, I won't say sport, but it's competitive. Every ad is competing against every ad. Think about flipping through a magazine. You're just flipping. And all those ads and all those articles, they're all competing against each other. And which one you going to kind of stop on? Like, ooh, that looks interesting. I like those colors. I don't even know why it's interesting, but I'm going to stop. And I'm going to like peruse it. And if it's dope enough, I might even read this one. That means all those other articles and ads, they lost. Billboards, they're all competing for your attention. When you come out of movie theater and you're passing all the movie posters on your way out, right? They're all competing for your attention. I love this analogy because it's kind of like the mall analogy I kind of made in probably like one of my first podcasts. But it's like you're going past all these movie posters, and you know, movie posters are the most creative pieces of creativity out there, in my opinion. And they're all just pictures like they all could talk. And you're walking through those hallways, and this movie poster over here is like, man, come look at me. Hey, I'm the new Transformer movie. Look at me. You know you like Transformers. Hey, the Smurfs, look at me. Oh, a horror movie, look at me. And they're all looking at, and you know, you pass most of them. You see them off of your periphery, so you see them. But which ones make you turn your head and actually look at it, right? That's the first thing that a good poster has to be. It has to be interesting. Interesting enough for you to look at it. And then which ones actually make you stop? That's a big deal. If it makes you stop, like, hold on, and then which ones actually make you go closer to them, like walk over to them and study the poster. Like, oh, who's gonna be in it? Who directed it? When's it coming out? Boom, that poster won. That poster won. Out of all those hallways, that poster won. You'll be more apt to go see that movie when it comes out than all the other posters. So even without you being there, design is a competition. And you gotta, in my opinion, you have to have a certain level of confidence and arrogance about yourself when you create something. That you know what you created is going to work. It's effective, and you have to be able to defend it. And you can't defend it if you're not confident in it. Okay? So yeah, that was my tangent for the day. You know, I gotta like, subscribe, comment, share, right? Like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Yeah, and until next time, peace.